To consider the nominations of Dr. Radha Plumb to be Deputy Undersecretary of Defense for Acquisition and Sustainment, Mrs. Milancy Harris to be Deputy Undersecretary of Defense for Intelligence and Security, Dr. Laura Taylor-Kale to be Assistant Secretary of Defense for Industrial Base Policy, and Mr. Brendan Owens to be Assistant Secretary of Defense for Energy, Installations, and Environment. On behalf of the committee, I want to thank each of you for your willingness to serve in these important positions. I would also like to welcome the guests and family members who are present today. Dr. Plumb, I would like to welcome your husband, John, your father, Ravi, your mother, Rama, Aunt Sheila, and cousin Tara. Mrs. Harris, I'd like to welcome your husband, Caleb, your father, William, and your mother, Robin, and Dr. Taylor-Kale. I would like to welcome your family members, Julian, Rana, Isaiah, Caleb, and Jana. And I think I've got them all, but if not, I welcome everyone. And Mr. Owens, I welcome your wife, Wendy, daughter Harper, son Eamon, father Francis, and mother Kathleen. We're grateful to each of you for your support. Dr. Plumb, you are nominated to be Deputy Undersecretary of Defense for Acquisition and Sustainment. You bring decades of technical expertise to this position, including your current role as Chief of Staff to the Deputy Secretary of Defense and previous experiences as Director of Research and Insights for Trust and Safety at Google and as a Senior Economist at the RAND Corporation. This position has a wide range of duties, including delivering timely, cost-effective capabilities for the armed forces, supervising all elements of defense acquisition and the defense industrial base, overseeing the modernization of our nuclear forces, and serving as a principal advisor to the Secretary on acquisition, sustainment, and core logistics. If confirmed, an urgent priority must be working to speed up the acquisition process. We need a way to provide our warfighters with the equipment they need while also ensuring acquisitions remain on time and on budget. Although some progress and reforms have been made in recent years, the Defense Department's acquisition process still remains on the Government Accountability Office's high-risk list. Similarly, the Department must improve the operation and sustainment of weapon systems over their life cycles, a cost that is often overlooked in the acquisition process. Dr. Plumb, I'd like to know how you would plan to address these challenges as we go forward. Mrs. Harris, you are nominated to be Deputy Undersecretary of Defense for Intelligence and Security. If confirmed, you will serve as a Principal Intelligence Advisor to the Secretary of Defense and will oversee the Defense Intelligence Enterprise. Your considerable experience in irregular warfare and counterterrorism policy across the Defense Department and intelligence community will serve you well in this role. Among many challenges, you will need to ensure the security and integrity of all Defense Department business and government entities and personnel. Specifically, it is vital to protect our industrial base from cyber theft and adverse investments by competitor nations. The Defense Department's innovation strategy relies on trustworthy technology and intellectual property, and it is imperative for the Department to be able to access critical technology that is being developed by commercial and non-traditional defense companies. Additionally, you will need to ensure that the Defense Intelligence Collection Agencies, NRO, NSA, and NGA, devote resources and management attention to the support of agile, joint, all-domain military operations and against peer competitors. These operations require split-second targeting support, and we'd like to know how you would ensure their success. Dr. Taylor-Kale, the Assistant Secretary of Defense for Industrial Base Policy, will serve as the Principal Advisor to the Undersecretary of Defense for Acquisition and Sustainment and for all industrial base policies and related matters. This position has a wide scope of responsibilities, from ensuring supply chain security, guiding department-wide acquisitions and investments, to coordinating small business programs. I would note your considerable experience in economic and business affairs in both the Commerce and State Departments, as well as your record of leadership at the Council on Foreign Relations. If confirmed, you would be the first person to hold this office. As such, there are a number of important challenges you will need to address. Notably, the Department must build domestic production capacity to support key technology areas such as microelectronics, artificial intelligence, and hypersonics. These are game-changing technologies that will be key to maintaining our advantages over China, Russia, and other adversaries. And our defense industrial base needs an advocate in the Department to ensure it receives the support it requires to deliver these products. Further, as we have seen with greater clarity over the past several years, ensuring supply chain security and access to critical strategic materials such as rare earth elements is fundamentally important for the Department and the defense industrial base. I would like to know your thoughts on how you would address these challenges. Finally, Mr. Owens, you are nominated to be Assistant Secretary of Defense for Energy, Installations, and Environment. If confirmed, you will oversee the Defense Department's physical footprint and provide management of military installations worldwide, as well as leadership on environmental, safety, and occupational health programs. Your strong engineering background, both in and out of government, as well as your experience as an energy manager at Fort Belvoir for 7 years, should serve you well. Among the challenges for this position is the persistent threat posed by PFAS contamination at defense installations around the world. Cleanup and remediation efforts for these chemicals is very costly and technically challenging, and I would like to know what steps you would take to help implement a better strategy moving forward. You will also need to ensure rigorous oversight of the privatized housing companies in the Defense Department's Military Housing Privatization Initiative. This is an issue that this committee has devoted considerable attention and effort to. Relatedly, the Department will need to take steps to protect and maintain mission readiness by addressing the climate resiliency of military installations. I would ask that you share how this process can be accelerated, particularly for installations most vulnerable to climate risks like wildfires, drought, and flooding. Lastly, I welcome your thoughts on how the Department can increase its use of distributed energy on its installations using non-defense funded contracting mechanisms, especially in the Air Force, as it has lagged behind the other services. Thank you again to our nominees. I look forward to your testimonies. And just a note, we will work expeditiously to get these nominees through, since we anticipate and hope for a recess in the coming week. So we'll have an expedited timeline for questions for the record. Now let me recognize the ranking member, Senator Inhofe.
I like the recess coming. That's good. I thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was not going to actually read my opening statement, but I know that the Democrats are winding up a meeting right now, and so I'll go ahead and do so. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thanks to our witnesses for being here and willing to serve the nation. As I've said many times, this is the most dangerous world that we've seen in my lifetime, and my lifetime is longer than anyone else in here. So we've had quite a few challenges facing us in your areas of responsibility. The NDS maintains that China is our pacing threat. The CCP is making historic investments to modernize its military, and we are falling behind because we haven't been resourcing our strategy adequately, and that was before we had record high inflation. We are also moving too slowly and providing too few munitions to our Ukrainian partners. We need a sense of urgency to make bold, smart decisions at the Pentagon, and that actually start with senior civilian leadership. Doctors Plumb and Taylor-Kale, you have been nominated for the #2 acquisition position in the top industrial base policy position in the department, respectively. Congress and the Pentagon work together and have made good strides in acquisition reform. But the Chinese are still moving faster than us. Earlier this month, the Deputy Assistant Secretary of the Air Force for Acquisition said that the PLA is getting new equipment 5 to 6 times faster than we are. And we all understand this is a problem that we have and will continue to have. Just that we understand their form of government. They can do some things faster than we can do them. Mr. Owens, you are nominated to be an Assistant Secretary of Defense for Energy, Installation, and Environment. I'm interested in hearing your thoughts on the current status of the Military Housing Privatization Initiative. We spent a lot of time on this in the last few years. Yeah. Ms. Harris, you are nominated to serve as the #2 intelligence officer in the Department of Defense. We must do a better job understanding our adversaries and articulating the threats they pose to the American public. We still don't have a handle on how to best prevent the Chinese from stealing our technology for military and commercial purposes. We will be a key responsibility for yours when you are confirmed. The department requires strong civilian leadership. We look forward to hearing each of your views in these areas. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, Senator Inhofe. And I will recognize first Dr. Plumb, then Mrs. Harris, then Dr. Taylor-Kale, and then Mr. Owens. Dr. Plumb, your testimony, please.
Good morning, Chairman Reed, Ranking Member Inhofe, and
Could you bring the microphones as close as possible?
Sure.
Some of us have hearing challenges.
No problem. Is that better?
Much better.
Good morning, Chairman Reed, Ranking Member Inhofe, and distinguished members of the committee. Thank you for your consideration of my nomination to serve as Deputy Undersecretary of Defense for Acquisition and Sustainment. I'm honored by the trust and confidence that President Biden and Secretary Austin have placed in their support for my nomination. I also wanted to thank this committee for its bipartisan work, including the faithful passage of the National Defense Authorization Act for over 60 years. Before I start, I want to thank my family, my parents and sister, aunt and cousin, and of course my husband and our 2 sons. I'd also like to thank a number of mentors, including the late Michael Sheehan, General Stanley McChrystal, and of course Deputy Secretary Hicks for their support and guidance throughout the years. I've been privileged to work in and around military, civilian, and contractor workforce of the Department of Defense, and if confirmed to serve as the Deputy Undersecretary of Defense for Acquisition and Sustainment, it would be an honor to continue to support their mission by enabling cost-effective, streamlined processes to develop and field capabilities critical to our warfighters. For more than 70 years, the United States leadership and democratic values have laid the foundation for peace and prosperity. But we are now operating in one of the most complex and rapidly evolving environments in decades, one that challenges much of that foundation. It is clear that the pacing challenge of our time is China, who leverages its coercive authoritarian means to threaten U.S. interests and democratic values around the world. Added to that is the acute threat of Russia, whose unprovoked attack on Ukraine has highlighted the crucial role our defense industrial base plays in delivering capabilities needed to both reassure our allies and defend against our adversaries. No doubt the U.S. can and will prevail against our competitors, but doing so will require dedicated focus to leverage the enduring advantages we derive from our democratic values and a free society. We have the finest military in the world and the creativity and competence of a thriving commercial sector that is also the envy of the world. If confirmed, my task will be to match warfighter requirements from our military with the technologies in that vibrant industrial base to ensure our military has the capabilities it needs to prevail in critical missions anytime, anywhere. To do this, we must establish clear transition pathways for critical new technologies like hypersonics, artificial intelligence, and directed energies. We must field solutions more rapidly. We must leverage new acquisition pathways to acquire software and software-intensive systems to meet the needs of our warfighters and invest in our defense industrial base to reduce foreign dependency. We must sustain our fielded weapon systems in a cost-effective manner and ensure the resilience of our installations and our systems to the full range of biological, nuclear, chemical, and environmental threats. And of course, we must empower the defense acquisition workforce to ensure they have the tools, authority, and leadership they need. If confirmed, I will strive to accomplish these critical priorities under the leadership, guidance of the Secretary of Defense, Deputy Secretary of Defense, and Undersecretary for Acquisition and Sustainment. To be successful in that task will require regular and transparent dialogue with Congress and, of course, this committee. Again, I want to thank this committee for its decades of bipartisan work, and I am committed to working together to ensure we can deter our adversaries and defend the United States. In all that I do, I pledge never to lose sight of that mission. Thank you, and I look forward to your questions.
Thank you very much, Dr. Plumb. Mrs. Harris, please.
Chairman Reed, Ranking Member Inhofe, and distinguished members of the committee, it is an honor to appear before you this morning as President Biden's nominee for Deputy Undersecretary of Defense for Intelligence and Security. I appreciate your consideration of my nomination. I have been blessed with an incredible family and community of friends who have supported me throughout my career. To my husband, Caleb, thank you for being my biggest cheerleader and my best sounding board. To my parents, Robin and Bill, and sisters, Mackenzie and Caitlin, Thank you for your support, instilling me with a sense of public service, and expanding my worldview. I would also like to thank all of the national security professionals with whom I have served throughout my career. Your commitment to service, your resilience, and your character inspires me every day, and I'm grateful for your friendship and mentorship. My journey to this hearing room today began when I joined the Defense Intelligence Agency as an intelligence analyst in 2004. From that work, I learned the importance of analytic rigor, integrity, and precision. Through countless significant national security challenges, I saw the importance of speaking truth to power and having a strong intelligence foundation for policy decisions. As I later transitioned to policymaking roles, that perspective was only reinforced as I became reliant on integrated intelligence support to inform policy recommendations and decisions. If confirmed, I look forward to ensuring the Defense Intelligence Enterprise is best positioned to continue providing that critical support to our senior leaders. This committee has long supported our nation's intelligence community and the essential missions conducted within the defense, intelligence, and security enterprises. I am humbled to be nominated to serve alongside those women and men who demonstrate a high standard of excellence and drive innovation while maintaining a clear focus on some of the nation's most critical challenges we face as a nation. Defense intelligence and security efforts provide critical support to the Secretary's national defense strategy and are essential to ensuring the United States retains its strategic advantage today and in the future. I approach my nomination with a clear focus on ensuring we are best positioned to collaborate with allies and partners, collect information, conduct analysis on intelligence priorities, and protect our intelligence and innovations. Positioning ourselves for the future also means ensuring we recruit and retain a workforce that reflects the diversity of our country. Our work is only as strong as those professionals who work in the intelligence community. Efforts to increase diversity are paramount to ensuring we have the diverse perspectives and skill sets we need to retain our edge. As we seek to recruit these professionals to public service, we need to ensure we do our best to onboard them quickly, facilitate career mobility, and ensure the work of the intelligence community can retain this talent base. This only increases the importance of the work to streamline the clearance process, increase reciprocity across the intelligence community, and create educational and broadening opportunities. If confirmed, I look forward to supporting Secretary Austin, DNI Haynes, and Undersecretary Moultrie on these priorities and ensuring that the Defense Intelligence and Security Enterprise is well integrated in the National Intelligence Enterprise. I am also committed to working closely with this committee and other committees of jurisdiction to provide the information needed to carry out your oversight responsibilities. Thank you for your time today and consideration of my nomination. I look forward to your questions.
Thank you very much. Dr. Laura Taylor-Kale, please. And I probably pronounced the name 5 different ways, so forgive me.
It's great. It's fine. Good morning, Chairman Reed, Ranking Member Inhofe, and distinguished members of the committee. I am incredibly grateful for this opportunity to appear before you and for your consideration of my nomination to serve as the Assistant Secretary of Defense for Industrial Base Policy. This committee deserves great credit for your insight in leading the way to establish the department's focal point for industrial-based policy at the Assistant Secretary level. I am deeply honored and humbled by President Biden's nomination to serve in this historic role and by the trust and confidence that Secretary Austin, Deputy Secretary Hicks, and Undersecretary LaPlante have placed in me. I come from humble origins. That I sit before you today is a testimony to this country's opportunities. I was born and raised outside of Chicago, Illinois, by a single mother who used a community college education to escape poverty. I would not be here without the countless teachers, friends, mentors, and family who encouraged me and instilled in me the importance of hard work and selfless service. I'd like to give a special thanks to my DC area friends and family, especially the Dotsons who joined me here today. And thank you, Chairman Reed, for personally welcoming Jana, Caleb, and Isaiah. This brings me a lot of street cred in teenager world. If confirmed, my service as the Assistant Secretary of Defense would be shaped by my stalwart belief that our economic security is fundamentally our national security. My experience in international economics and development finance has reinforced my view that our open, democratic system and market-driven, rules-based economy is our strength, and that our resilient and innovative defense industrial base powers our ability to prevail in an age of strategic competition against China and other competitors. As you noted, Mr. Chairman, I began my career in public service as a State Department Foreign Service officer. I also served in Afghanistan as an economic officer. I served alongside brilliant, dedicated members of the armed forces, and I remain deeply proud of our servicemen and women, and if confirmed, it would be my privilege to support our nation's warfighters wherever they may be. I work closely with manufacturers as the Deputy Assistant Secretary for Manufacturing at the Department of Commerce and study changes in the industrial workforce. If confirmed, my priorities will be securing the health of and resilience of the defense industrial base, balancing our short-term gaps and long-term priorities by focusing on these key issues, engaging industry and our strategic allies as partners to mitigate supply chain risks, increasing competition and supporting small business and non-traditional suppliers, supporting partnerships to develop the defense industrial and manufacturing workforce, protecting the defense industrial base from foreign adversary capital, increasing our domestic production of critical minerals and strategic materials, and working across the Defense Department, particularly with the Office of the Undersecretary of Defense for Research and Engineering, to infuse greater innovation in the defense industrial base and move new technologies through and past the valley of death. Again, I am humbled and honored and profoundly fortunate to be nominated for this position, for which there is significant bipartisan support on behalf of the nation that I love. I commit to you that if confirmed, I will give this position my all. Further, if confirmed, today will mark the beginning of a robust and meaningful dialogue between us. I commit to consulting regularly, clearly, robustly, and transparently with this committee and its subcommittees, and with Congress on the full range of issues confronting the defense industrial base. Ultimately, I hope that our joint efforts will ensure the necessary resources for our warfighters and secure our nation's economic future. Thank you again, and I look forward to your questions.
Thank you, Doctor. Mr. Owens, please.
Thank you, Chairman Reed. Ranking Member Inhofe, distinguished members of the committee, thank you for taking the time today to consider my nomination to be Assistant Secretary of Defense for Energy, Installations, and Environment. Throughout this process, it's been clear to me how seriously this committee takes its responsibility to assess the qualifications of nominees for key positions within DoD. I thank you for your critical role in this process. The confidence President Biden, Secretary Austin, and Deputy Secretary Hicks have placed in me is deeply humbling. If confirmed, I will do everything I can to live up to the examples of service and principled leadership they have set throughout their distinguished careers. By my family's standards, I'm quite late to public service, but I am honored to have the opportunity to become part of a tradition I've always been extremely proud of. My father, Bucky, retired as captain of the port of Mobile, Alabama, after a distinguished 25-year career in the United States Coast Guard. The example he and my mother, Kathy, set for my brothers and I during their service has had a deep and lasting effect on all of us. Ryan, Matt, and Terry are now setting the example my parents set for us with their own families. Ryan has worked for the Coast Guard for almost 20 years, and Matt and Terry are first responders across the river in Arlington. I'm also proud of the dozens of other aunts, uncles, and cousins who, in our family, have served or are serving with distinction. To my wife and kids, Wendy, Harper, and Eamon, I'm excited for the opportunity to continue our journey alongside the incredible people who dedicate their lives to the safety and national security. I'm grateful if confirmed that you're willing to join me in returning to a version of the life that defined the first 25 years in mine. I'm thrilled to have the opportunity to serve the people who safeguard the nation. Growing up, we learned reverence for and deep appreciation of the sacrifices our military service members and their families make when they answer the call. The Defense Department's people are its greatest strength, and their service and professionalism is unrivaled anywhere in the world. I am honored, if confirmed, to serve these extraordinary people. I will do everything I can to ensure their ability to decisively execute their mission, while those of us serving in support of that mission safeguard their well-being. For most of the force, this starts by ensuring they have safe, healthy, efficient, and resilient places to live and work. These places should be enhancing the health, well-being, and readiness of our service members and their families. If confirmed, I will put a 25-year background in efficient, healthy, and resilient buildings to work and be a champion for our service members to ensure their environment, homes, workplaces, and infrastructure enhance their ability to complete their mission and thrive as people. The EI&E portfolio is broad and extends well beyond installation fence lines. Defense communities provide indispensable services the department relies on to support our uniformed military families. So while I intend, if confirmed, to put our service members and their families first, I know that the relationships the department cultivates and maintains with defense communities are critical components of installation resilience and force readiness. I admire the foresight embodied in the integrated approach to capability improvement and community engagement in programs like URSIP, REPI, Sentinel, and the Defense Communities Infrastructure Pilot Program. The DCIP pilot is one example of many of the innovative programs in the EI&E portfolio that recognize the interdependency of mission continuity and the defense community. Our installations rely on non-DoD partners for, practically speaking, all of their energy. Installation resilience in the face of malign and naturally occurring disruption is crucial. As DoD works to implement installation-level mission readiness strategies like microgrids, building to grid integration, energy generation, and storage, its sheer size also presents an opportunity to not only support its community partners, but also the entire country in commercializing new and scaling existing technology with an eye towards enhancing resilience, energy independence, reliability, equity, and health in the U.S. The DoD's success and ability to complete its mission and secure the nation is predicated on regular and constructive dialogue between Congress and the department. I fully understand the importance of this partnership, and if confirmed, I will work with DoD leadership to ensure timely and substantive communication with you and your staffs. Thank you again for your consideration of my nomination. I look forward to your questions today and if confirmed, going forward as well.
Thank you, Mr. Owens. Before we begin our round of questioning, I have a series of questions that are required for all nominees, and you may answer in unison. Have you adhered to applicable laws and regulations governing conflicts of interest?
Yes.
Have you assumed any duties or taken any actions that would appear to presume the outcome of the confirmation process?
No.
No.
Exercising our legislative and oversight responsibilities makes it important that this committee, its subcommittees, and other appropriate committees of Congress receive testimony, briefings, reports, records, and other information from the executive branch on a timely basis. Do you agree, if confirmed, to appear and testify before this committee when requested?
Yes.
Do you agree to provide records, documents, and electronic communications in a timely manner when requested by this committee, its subcommittees, or other appropriate committees of Congress, and to consult with the requester regarding the basis for any good faith delay or denial in providing such records?
Yes.
Will you ensure that your staff complies with deadlines established by this committee for the production of reports, records, and other information, including timely responding to hearing questions for the record?
Yes.
Will you cooperate in providing witnesses and briefers in response to congressional requests?
Yes.
Will those witnesses and briefers be protected from reprisal for their testimony or briefings?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Dr. Plumb, a lot of focus is on acquiring more, quantity, but we also are struggling to maintain our readiness and the forces and the systems we use today. What opportunities exist to increase coordination and communication between the department's acquisition and sustainment communities to help ensure sustainment is adequately considered during the acquisition process?
Chairman Reed, thank you. As you know, the sustainment costs for a number of our major programs account for the vast majority of the total costs over the life cycle of the programs. I'm aware that in the department we have been moving to develop a more data-driven approach to controlling those sustainment costs, including pulling together some of that data to control the cost drivers, as well as integrating that cost information on the front end during contract development and oversight of contract execution. If confirmed, my focus would be on making sure we can identify as early as possible key issues and drivers of sustainment, include that in early negotiations, as well as regularly maintain oversight of those cost drivers as capabilities are fielded, so we can control costs during the deployment and fielding of capabilities over their entire life cycle.
Thank you very much. Mrs. Harris, one of the many, many duties you will have is modernizing the security clearance process, including intelligence support and oversight. How will you approach this modernization, and how can you take maximum advantage of commercially available digital data?
Mr. Chairman, thank you for the question. As I'm aware, security clearance reform is a major priority for the department. The Defense Counterintelligence and Security Agency is focused on ensuring that we can clear people in a timely fashion and that we have a process that allows for us to do so in an efficient manner. If confirmed, I commit that I will work to ensure that we are using the maximum technology solutions available to ensure we can do that quickly, and that we continue to work to streamline the processes and shorten the timelines to maximize our cleared personnel.
Thank you very much. Mr. Owens, EPA last month released new drinking water advisory levels for 4 PFAS chemicals, which will have an impact on the Department of Defense. In addition, the RNDAAs over the last few years have required reporting on PFAS conditions. If confirmed, will you ensure that alternative water is provided when these chemicals are detected in drinking water supplies?
Chairman Reed, thank you for the question, and I want to thank the committee for being so stalwart and focused on the issues of environmental contamination and the potential health and safety challenges they present, because the health and well-being of service members and their families and the civilian workforce are paramount, and every leader in DoD should be laser being focused on making sure that we're doing what we can in response to the ability for DoD to provide for the needs of the installation and the community in the presence of situations that make any of the infrastructure that they are reliant on right now unusable. I commit to being able to focus on ensuring that they have what they need.
Thank you very much. And of course, I assume that a simple yes, you will comply with the reporting requirements within the NDAA.
Absolutely, yes.
Thank you very much. And Dr. Taylor-Kale, that's the 6th mispronunciation. Over the past several years, we have come to discover that our industrial base is fragile, and we need to take steps in the Department of Defense all throughout the government. So what do you believe are the most pressing issues to the health of the defense industrial base, and how will you address them?
Thank you, Chairman Reed. Actually, you correctly pronounced my name.
Oh.
It is Taylor-Kale. You know, as you've noted, that the health and resilience of our defense industrial base is absolutely essential to our economic security, I believe. We need to be able to deter strategic adversaries like China and Russia and provide the tools and capabilities that our warfighters need. You know, the defense industrial base has a unique challenge in striking a balance between long-term and short-term needs and goals, between producing and sustaining mature systems and adopting new systems and capabilities and innovations. I think some of the key challenges are around workforce, aging workforce, a shortage of workers with STEM and industrial skills that makes it difficult to meet production targets. Also, supply chain security and vulnerabilities, as well as, frankly, an internal issue is programmatic and budgetary predictability and stability. If confirmed, I will work closely with this committee across the department enterprise and with industry and the interagency to come up with solutions that address these critical challenges.
Well, thank you very much for your testimony, and thank you all for your commitment to service and your testimony. Let me recognize the ranking member, Senator Inhofe.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Dr. Plumb, you spent time recently working at both Facebook and Google, and Ms. Harris, you also spent time working at Facebook and on the oversight board of Facebook. Can you both please describe your work at these companies and what involvement you had, if any, in the development of the content moderation policies or in decisions to moderate content? And let's start with Dr. Plumb.
Ranking Member Inhofe, my role, similar to roles throughout my career at both companies, was focused on applying data and analysis to help identify problematic issues like Facebook, child pornography, ISIS recruiting content. At Google, my roles focused on applying data and analysis to improve business operations to address issues like copyright violations and financial fraud in helping make those business processes more effective and efficient. Overall, I was focused on the research and analysis pieces rather than on content moderation policy or content moderation decisions.
Ms. Harris?
Ranking Member Inhofe, thank you for the question. My role at Facebook was focused on designing a way to bring outside experts in to look at Facebook's content decision. I did not work on content moderation actions or the policies. I was focused on the operations issues to facilitate those outside expert reviews.
All right. And Mr. Owens, in your advanced policy questions, you stated that, and this is a quote, in many cases, the department's installation energy projects should not only bolster resilience, but also enhance conservation, increase energy efficiency, and implement clean, low-carbon energy solutions. Now, I believe that the number one priority of the Department of Defense is lethality. I'd ask you if you agree with that. And secondly, do you think that there is a point where strategic and economic costs outweigh potential environmental benefits?
Ranking Member, thank you very much for the question. I absolutely agree that DoD's number one priority is to provide military forces to deter war and ensure our nation's security, 100%. In terms of how I would characterize the joint benefits that investments in resilience and efficiency can provide, I absolutely see that those two things need to be considered together. They need to be balanced, and then they need to make sure that they are doing everything that we're doing from an efficiency standpoint or from a resilience standpoint is supporting lethality.
So you repeat them, the two areas that you feel should be hand in hand.
Efficiency, well, I think it's more of a triad, efficiency, resiliency, and lethality.
On somewhat of an equal basis?
I think I said them in the exact opposite order of the way that they would be precedent for DoD.
Okay. And lastly, Ms. Harris, you've served as the Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense for Irregular Warfare and Counterterrorism since February of 2021. Can you describe the role that you played in planning for the withdrawal from Afghanistan last year?
Ranking Member Inhofe, thank you for the question. As you correctly state, I work from the Office of the Undersecretary of Defense for Policy. I'm one of a number of Deputy Assistant Secretaries of Defense with responsibilities related to our mission in Afghanistan. My role is focused primarily on CT policy and the employment of Special Operations Forces. So with regards to our withdrawal from Afghanistan, those were the primary areas in which I was involved.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Inhofe. And let me recognize Senator Shaheen. I'd also point out that my colleagues are arriving now because of the special Democratic caucus that began at 9 and just concluded. Senator Shaheen, please.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. My timing was perfect. And congratulations to each of our nominees. Thank you for your willingness to serve our country. I want to begin both with Dr. Plumb and Mr. Owens on the issue of PFAS, because as I know you're aware, that's a contaminant that is affecting a number of our military installations across the country. We have seen it in the former Pease Air Force Base in Portsmouth, New Hampshire, where because of the firefighting foam, we have groundwater that has been contaminated. And I will tell you that the Air Force has been very cooperative and helpful with the community, but it remains a challenge. And your respective offices play a critical role in overseeing and implementing energy and environmental policies that will address PFAS contamination. So I guess my question is for both of you, if the fiscal year 2022 National Defense Act included funding to address PFAS contamination, and it required the department to adhere to a testing schedule required DOD to develop a PFAS remediation schedule to clean up military installations, and the schedule is due to Congress on September 23rd. If confirmed, will each of you commit to ensuring on-time delivery of that report to Congress?
Senator, thank you. And let me start with saying I share your concern on PFAS. It is a really critical area that we do need to focus on. We owe our service members and their families safe and healthy places to live and work. If confirmed, I absolutely commit to making sure we have on-time delivery of required reports and meeting other federal requirements.
Thank you. Mr. Owens?
I'll follow on to what Dr. Plumb said about making this a priority for the Assistant Secretary EI&E if confirmed, and we'll also commit to ensuring that we are giving you the reports that you need according to the NDAA.
Thank you very much. We'll talk again in October. One of the other concerns that I have is that when Congress has sought to provide higher levels of funding for PFAS testing and remediation beyond what has been appropriated in the past, DOD has claimed that it was not executable, and I think that's just unacceptable. If Congress is going to provide funding, you need to work with us to ensure that that funding is going to be used in the way that Congress intends. So again, if confirmed, will you ensure that the appropriate plans are developed to ensure that DOD can make use of any additional funding provided by Congress for PFAS-related activities, and that you will not turn away that critical funding?
Senator, if confirmed, I commit to working with the committee and with our colleagues in Comptroller to develop the necessary products to figure out how to spend the money and do the right remediation.
Thank you. Mr. Owens?
I'll commit to the same.
Also, Mr. Owens, you will assume the role of chair of the PFAS task force. If confirmed, it's an important body that was put in place initially as an ad hoc group by the former Secretary Esper. It was codified in fiscal year 2021 NDAA to ensure sustained attention. And can you speak to, as assuming you are going to take over and get confirmed, I'm assuming that you are, what would be your top priorities in leading this task force?
Senator, I think in terms of the specific remit of the task force, I'm not that familiar with what the roles and responsibilities would be. I know that that PFAS is a critically important issue, and I commend this committee for making it such an area of focus. If I'm confirmed, I think the process to engage in ensuring that we understand testing limitations, ensuring that we understand what the strategy for finding alternatives for any places that PFAS is still in use, and then also remediation would be the three top priorities.
Thank you. I look forward to working with you on those priorities. Dr. Plumb, one of the things that has worked very successfully in terms of dealing with our energy use have been third-party financing vehicles, so energy-saving performance contracts, SPICs. Can you talk about what your views are relative to SPICs and their importance in helping our military achieve the energy savings that we're all looking for?
Senator, I think ensuring we have energy savings and more generally energy resilient and energy efficient installations is a critical priority for our department, both to be faithful stewards of taxpayer dollars and frankly to have the resilience our installations need. So creative solutions like these third-party partnerships can be really helpful in helping us achieve those goals. If confirmed, I would want to work to understand these deals, these approaches, and other approaches to make sure we're identifying the right solutions for the right installations to get those cost savings and resilience.
Well, thanks very much. I appreciate that. And I think the Army should be commended for its efforts to revamp the way it deals with performance contracting. I know the Navy is also looking at this issue. I understand the Air Force has been more reluctant, so I hope they will take this as a shot across the bow. This is something they need to look at. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Shaheen. Senator Tuberville, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Congratulations to all of you. And it's great to see your family members back here in the back. They're all smiling, those that we can see. You know, while our military boasts the best equipment in the world, asked any service member what they think about DoD websites and office systems and they'll tell you they're slow, old, frustrating. Our military members spend hundreds of hours logging onto an ancient system. The Navy still uses a program called NavFit 98A to process evaluations. Now, 98 ought to give you a good idea when that was originated. Several of you have worked for the most cutting-edge tech leaders in the world. And as you take your new leadership roles, I'd like each of you to refuse to approve any new websites in your areas of responsibility that are not built to be compatible with the 3 most popular internet browsers and top 2 operating systems. I'd hope you'd do that. You know, this is we're long past, you know, the Stone Age. Ms. Harris, in September 2018, the Department of Defense released its cyber strategy. The strategy charges DoD to defend forward, shape the day-to-day competition, and prepare for war in the cyber domain. DoD is now in the process of updating its cyber strategy. If confirmed, what actions will you take to mitigate any gaps between defense intelligence and the goals of the current and emerging cyber strategy?
Senator, thank you for the question. I agree, cybersecurity and cyber threats are a critical concern for the department today. Cyber is an issue that bridges a number of stakeholders within the department, and so if confirmed, I will commit that I will ensure that the intelligence and security apparatus is best supporting those efforts, both on assessing cyber threats in the intelligence community, but also in ensuring that we are taking the proper cybersecurity practices.
Thank you. Dr. Plumb, thank you for meeting with me last week. Every Secretary of Defense since Rumsfeld has sought to refine and streamline how the DoD handles procurement. The DoD has a no-fail mission, but success continues to be held up by the red tape and contract protest. In your opinion, what are the most important factors to monitor to understand the health of the defense acquisition systems?
Senator, you rightly note our defense acquisition system is not as fast as we need it to deliver warfighter capabilities. It's my understanding that a combination of factors, including, as you note, protests, timelines, contract timelines, notice timelines, as well as factors during the negotiation process, can slow that delivery. If confirmed, I commit to work within the authorities we have and work with this committee to identify ways to shorten that timeline, streamline the process, also identify efficiencies, and leverage different pathways for our different technologies to speed that up.
Thank you. Mr. Owens, I hate we didn't get to meet yesterday. Had a lot to talk about. Hopefully we can do that in the future. Just a question about, have you been briefed on the Project Pele?
Senator, not directly, but I am aware of what it is.
Yeah. You know, obviously we're looking for reforming, you know, our power to our troops. Pele is a moving reactor that you can move into the field. I'd love for you to look into that once you get in. It's an amazing program that I think we're going to need in the very future. The DoD pioneered nuclear power. I don't think a lot of people know that. Few people know that the first commercial reactor was a DoD project. You know, in addition to Project Pele, the FY23 NDAA directs the DoD to look at how a thorium cycle could safely harden our military bases and fuel space propulsion and power. I'd like to get your pledge that you would look into that and be very familiar with this review that we're going to do through the NDAA.
Senator, I think that balancing energy diversity, resilience, and combat superiority is a critical role of what's in the EI&E portfolio, and if confirmed, you have my commitment to look into it.
Thank you. Dr. Taylor, a significant portion of critical and strategic materials required for major defense programs come from non-allied countries, including China. What steps should the department take to support the domestic manufacturing and processing of these materials?
Oh, thank you, Senator. As I noted, I think that having reliable and secure supply chains is absolutely critical for the health and resilience of the defense industrial base. I think, you know, I want to thank this committee and the Senate for supporting the CHIPS Act. I think this will be an important step. The department I think needs to take a number of steps, some of which they've outlined, but certainly moving towards more domestic sourcing and also working with international partners and allies for friendshoring, as some call it. So I would, if confirmed, be very focused on working with stakeholders in the interagency to facilitate domestic sourcing and also working with some of our international allies to facilitate areas where we can work together.
Thank you. You're going to have a hard job. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Tuberville. Senator King, please.
I don't think that's going to work. I'll try this. Okay. Ms. Harris, you're entering one of the most important jobs in the Defense Department. Intelligence, I'm coming to believe, is the secret sauce in modern conflict. And so capable intelligence widely distributed within the agency and within the warfighter groups, I think is critical. One thing that I'm very worried about, however, is cyber and electronic warfare and resiliency in the face of cyber attacks. I hope that you will have put cyber at the top of your priority list, because nothing else works if we are disabled in terms of cyber or electronic warfare attacks. One strategy I think that's very important is red teaming. Everybody thinks they're invulnerable until they're not. And I'd like your thoughts on the issue of cyber and cyber resiliency.
Senator, thank you for the question. I agree with you both in the criticality of our intelligence and intelligence analysis to support the warfighter, and also in the need to ensure that we are giving cyber and cybersecurity the attention that they deserve. If confirmed, you have my commitment that I will ensure that we are giving the proper analytic attention to that and prioritizing the types of intelligence sharing that will facilitate a broader understanding of the challenges we face in the technology environment today.
In a modern conflict, the first 30 minutes is going to be all about cyber and electronic warfare and trying to blind the opponent. So I think that should be a very high priority. An intelligence question that I've raised and have had briefings on and am following is the determination of the will to fight. We found in Afghanistan that we overestimated the will to fight of the Afghan army. We underestimated the will to fight of the Ukrainian people. This is an important factor. It's difficult to assess, I understand, but I hope you'll work with General Berrier and pursue the work that they're doing, because it's an important policy question, could be very important for us in the future, for example, with regard to Taiwan.
Senator, I couldn't agree more. Clearly, will to fight is an area that we need to continue to refine our understanding of. My understanding is that the intelligence community, as part of their continual processes to improve their analytic abilities, is looking at just this issue. And if confirmed, I look forward to learning more about those efforts and keeping the committee informed.
I can commend General Berrier and his staff because I know they are, and the Director of National Intelligence is looking very closely at this subject. Dr. Plumb, sustainment and resiliency in acquisitions. I believe that every time we buy a major platform, whether it's an aircraft, a ship, any kind of mobile vehicle, we should be also buying the intellectual property so that the government has the power to make parts. Every depot, every hangar, every ship should have a 3D printer. We should not have a major weapon system out of commission because of a lack of a part. So I hope that that's part of your acquisition strategy. We're not just buying pieces of metal anymore. We should be buying the intellectual property that will allow us to maintain those and not rely on a long and somewhat uncertain supply chain.
Senator, absolutely. We need to figure out better strategies to deal with the supply chain for our weapon system. That includes dealing with part obsolescence and our ability to produce them in-house and in more robust and resilient ways. If confirmed, I commit to looking at ensuring we have the intellectual property as well as other solutions that can allow us to build in that supply chain and parts resilience to enable us to maintain and sustain our warfighting capabilities at a much more reasonable cost.
Just remember, for want of a nail, the shoe was lost. For want of the shoe, the horse was lost. For want of the horse, the battle was lost, and the war could be lost. I don't want that to be the story of our military. Dr. Taylor-Kale, we've had a good discussion. Two items. One is I'd like to see more emphasis on smaller firms and trying to develop the acquisition process so that smaller firms can compete and participate in the Defense Department acquisition process. Secondly, I'd like to invite you to Maine, where we have a diverse defense industrial base, where we have large facilities like Bath Iron Works, Pratt Whitney, Portsmouth Naval Shipyard, but we also have many smaller firms that participate. And I think it would be useful for you to see that kind of universe of the defense industrial base. And I know you realize how important it is to maintain the industrial base in a vigorous and healthy acquisition atmosphere.
Thank you, Senator. I appreciate our discussion that we had. I also enjoyed learning our mutual love for road trips across country. I would be more than delighted if confirmed to visit Maine. I've done similar trips in my capacity as Deputy Assistant Secretary for Manufacturing to Tennessee, North Carolina, Alabama, Pennsylvania, other states where there's an industrial base and innovation.
Yeah, but Maine's better than any of those, just to be clear. Thank you very much. I'm out of time. Mr. Owens, I'm going to ask you some questions for the record. Thank you all, and congratulations on your nomination. Look forward to working with you on behalf of the United States of America. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator King. Senator Rounds, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First, let me thank all of you for your continued service to our country. Mr. Owens, I'm going to add my voice to the voices that have already expressed concerns with regard to PFAS and PFAB. Thanks for taking the time to meet with me in my office this last week. If confirmed, you will be the chairman of the PFAS task force. Given how pervasive this substance is, and the longer that we take to address the issue, the more money it will cost in the long run. This stuff doesn't stay in one place. It continues to permeate throughout the soils in and around the bases where it's been used for firefighting material. If we don't begin to tackle this as soon as possible and get ahead of it, it's just going to cost us more money in the long run. So we're either going to pay now or we're going to pay a whole lot more later on. I'm just going to ask right now for your commitment that if confirmed, you will promptly grab a hold of this issue and make sure that the communities that support our military installations across this country will be taken care of and that it will be a priority for you.
Senator, thanks for your focus on this issue. You have my commitment on that this will be a priority.
Thank you. Dr. Plumb, if confirmed, you will have oversight over the Assistant Secretary of Defense for Energy Installations and Environment, the position that Mr. Owens had been nominated for, and as such will also play a major role in making sure our installations and surrounding communities are taken care of with regard to this particular issue. Do I have your commitment that if confirmed, you will also look into the issue, and if any additional resources or authorities are needed to address PFAS remediation, you will promptly let this committee know?
Senator, you have my commitment to look into it, to proactively identify where we can make more progress and to work directly with this committee.
Thank you. Dr. Taylor-Kale, and did I say that right?
Taylor-Kale.
Kale.
Close.
Thank you. I'm going to work at it. I've expressed my confusion in the past and my frustration as well of why with DOD plans and when DOD plans and prepares for a one-year or a one-war scenario, and in most cases a short one-war scenario at a time, basically on one front. Many leading defense experts believe that if engaged in a shooting war with a peer or a near-peer competitor, we would run out of many of our best weapon systems and munitions in 1 to 2 weeks. R&D for the future is needed, but we also need procurement now. Otherwise, we're going to have some very serious problems in the FY26 and 27 timeframe. Recognizing right now and learning from what we've seen in Ukraine and the challenges of moving munitions that are used day to day around right now and the shortages that immediately begin to become apparent. I simply don't believe that the defense industrial base, the mobilization of that, or the type that we've seen in the past, is possible and in the current operational environment. And it would appear to me that we're going to have to refocus on how quickly we can come up to speed and begin to produce munitions that we've sometimes just taken for granted in the past. Would you agree with me that we've got to do something in order to expedite the acquisition of munitions in a more timely fashion?
Senator, I absolutely share your concern about our supply chain vulnerabilities. I think the war in Ukraine and following COVID-19 really laid bare some of these vulnerabilities and these critical challenges that we've known for a while, but certainly more acute now. I think if confirmed, it will be very important to apply lessons learned from this Ukraine aid, and also to figure out how best to support the industrial base in building more hot production lines, as Undersecretary LaPlante has advocated for. I think some of the key issues that I outlined earlier, like workforce issues, challenges with programmatic and budgetary stability, will be key pieces to look out for and to focus on. If confirmed, I commit to you that I will work closely with industry, work with this committee and your staffs, as well as across the department enterprise to really address these issues.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My time has expired.